This meeting of the Select Board on November 18, 2024. In attendance tonight are Jeff Thomas and Stephen and myself, Ken Traum, and Sabrina will be joining us shortly. Chief, since you're here, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda for November 18.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the public meeting minutes of November 12, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Second, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Abstain.
Fair enough. Okay, Neil, unless you have something you want to start with, we'll turn right over to cemeteries.
Nope.
It's a big deal. You get all three of us.
We're honored.
We can't even get this many of us at a meeting sometimes.
We can go into the other room and meet afterwards.
I brought papers to be signed. Hi.
Go ahead.
So I think I just want to point out the biggest difference between what we've asked for in the past and
Mhm.
this year, although I think last year we asked for a big chunk as well. We're asking for a big chunk, more than half of the lawn care line item, because we have spent down our interest, the money that we get from interest, and we can only afford to pitch in $20,000 for that line this year.
I do not have the most current numbers for your reserves, but in 2023, I looked at the reserves and they went up over $100,000. So I'm confused by what you're saying.
You can only spend the interest income. You cannot actually spend the earnings. I know, it's very confusing. So last year or year to date, so my projection is that our actual interest income on the perpetual care fund is going to be between $16,000 and $17,000. Even though the New Hampshire Trust is doing very well by us this year, and overall, the portfolio is up 12% year to date.
Mhm.
It's also up 1% month to date. So the stock market's in wherever it is again.
So Gail, you're saying you could spend the interest but not dividends?
Correct. By state law, Ken.
Okay, I won't object to state law.
I know, I mean, it's such an archaic system, but that is
We'd like to.
right.
Then why not transfer some of those funds into interest-bearing accounts so it can be used? Because you're saying some of it can't be
Cannot,
used.
the bookkeeping that's required by the state for the MS9 is unbelievable. So although the funds are invested in the aggregate, every plot that we sell for $600, 400, is it 460, 400 that gets deposited is actually listed as an individual trust fund by New Hampshire Trust. So so the money, yeah. So the money's invested in the aggregate and there's an amazing amount of bookkeeping. So I don't see that the trustees of the trust funds have the ability to shift some of it into a interest bearing to segue the money, separate the cemetery money out from the overall trust fund money. Don't forget, the cemetery funds are only part of the trust fund.
Out of the $700,000 to $800,000 in the trust fund, how much of that is for the latter as opposed to the former?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
Mm.
that.
For care?
Well, I don't have that number in front of me, but, it should all be perpetual care money.
I'm
Yeah,
just.
ask the question another way. I'll get
Okay, I'm simply struggling with, you've got $800,000 there. And you're saying by state law, you can only spend 16,000 of it or
Yeah,
something like
unless
that?
yes. There might be a different way to cut it, but I don't see how we can reinvest the money and get a higher rate of return without jeopardizing the safety of the underlying asset and the rest of the trust funds. You know, the cemetery money isn't a standalone pot of money.
What could you use the rest of the money for, other than the interest?
Nothing. It is held in trust in perpetuity for perpetual care.
But then
This
you
is true
can't,
of the scholarship funds. This is true of every dollar in the trust fund. You can only spend the interest income.
I guess I didn't understand that.
I mean, you can have the conversation with New Hampshire Trust and say, can we get a higher interest rate, which we could, but that would mean that there'd be no growth in any of the principal funds. And that's not a position that the trustees of the trust funds will take on behalf of the overall portfolio at the current time. I've only been doing this for a year, so
Mhm.
I think I got it right, but it's confusing at best.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed.
And I don't think it's been necessarily a priority in the past for the trustee of the trust funds.
And so, Gail, is that amount that goes for every $600 lot, you said, go some amount, 400, 460, something goes into the trust fund? Is that a fixed percentage or is it a fixed fee?
It's a fixed fee. And you can get buried in Warner for $50 versus if you're lucky enough to live in Warner, it only costs you $50 to buy a plot. But here in Hopkinton, it's going to cost you, what are we up to? $650. So we think we're at the top of the market. We're certainly happy to relook at that again, but we have raised the rates fairly substantially in the last year or two.
And Ken, I would just like to remind people that this expense that we've been paying since I've been a trustee, maybe since you were a trustee, the town used to pay for all of it. And then at some point shifted it to the cemetery trustees, and obviously it's not sustainable.
So one of the things that we've tossed around in the past, we haven't had this conversation this year, is what role the Department of Public Works might be able to pay. I mean, it's a substantial contract. I think Pinnacle, Judy knows this, was more involved in the last couple of bidding processes. Pinnacle comes in at about half of the rate of anybody else. I mean, this is a very reasonable contract if you're going to contract out this service. However, now the other thing, the town could give us all $600. That would be helpful moving forward. As you may know, the town takes a piece of the money for every sale we have. But in truth, sales aren't driving the revenue of the cemeteries anymore, so.
More people are being cremated than full casket burials.
But in the past, we did do a study calling lots of towns, and their public works department does take care of the maintenance of the cemeteries. So I very fearful that we'll come to the point if Pinnacle decides they don't want to do our work anymore, that we will have a horrendous expense that we just simply cannot pay.
Mhm.
So it's really something that in the future, I would hope you would discuss.
Has DPW ever done the work there? Do we know?
Don't believe so.
Pinnacle's been doing it for maybe 30 or 40 years.
Mhm.
A
But
lot.
Judy, you're saying that in other towns you've looked into, usually DPWs do that?
Yes.
In Concord, may I just say that it's actually the Department of Parks, Recreation and Cemeteries?
So if we have to, double, pay twice as much or 3 times as much, which is what some of the other bids came in at, it makes sense to look to you to talk about the town taking on this responsibility if possible.
And we have talked with Neil about it in the past, but there was a labor shortage going on. We had the COVID years and a labor shortage, so I don't know if that's changing in the town.
Well, we can certainly ask Dan Blanchett, who's going to be here later this evening, his thoughts on that.
Well, he's not going to be jumping up and down with joy at the idea, for sure. But
Guaranteed, I agree with you.
no, I know, I understand that, but it's a real issue that
Yeah.
looking forward,
Yeah. Mhm.
we can't hire some of these expensive lawn companies and we just can't pay $100,000 to mow the cemeteries.
And that really is only the 3 big cemeteries. It's not all of the cemeteries that we manage.
Mhm.
How many more are there?
6.
Okay.
7.
So there's 10 total?
I think there's
They're smaller. but-
There's a couple that are just a couple grays, but
They
there's
don't
there.
get the attention.
Clement
the
Hill,
main
Putney
street.
Hill. They get attention when we do a cemetery walk
Mhm.
there. Joe would go out and clean
Should I
everything.
say how great the cemetery walk was again?
Do you know how much longer is on the contract with Pinnacle? Is it like,
We're on a year to year.
okay,
Yeah.
And I have to say that, he did a 3-year bid 2 or 3 years ago, and he just lets us have that price year to year,
No,
even though
it's
we
gone up-
haven't
no, it's
sounded.
gone up some.
He went up a little bit.
No, but it's the price that he quoted for his 3-year
Okay.
bid. I mean, he's a very reasonable guy.
He is very reasonable.
We had someone else maybe 10, 12 years ago. And they were not very well maintained, which caused a lot of problems. And it went out to bid then. And yeah, he was a half or a third the cost at that. And we really, I don't think you get complaints, but we don't get complaints
He
either
got
the
the
way we did.
complaints, He said, and he would just tell people, I'm not even doing it.
Back then, there were a lot, it was not good.
Neil, do you have any feel for what would be involved in transferring some of the funds from stocks to interest-bearing accounts of one sort or another?
That's a trustee of trust funds type.
I wasn't saying that you have the authority, I was just asking if you have any feeling for if there'd be much, what would be involved in doing that.
I don't know the laws around that without
Okay.
looking them up.
Mhm. Okay.
Who is the trustee of the trust funds?
Steve Locks and Christine Barton. I ran because of this, because of the cemeteries.
Because we wanted to know
We're so
Because you're a glutton
frustrated.
for punishment?
how is our spending compared to what our income is, and it was
Mhm.
hard to figure that out. Steve, we asked him so many questions and he did so much work to try to find out, what was going on, and then Gail ran
Mhm.
to continue to figure it out.
So what I have not done, I have to admit, is I have not asked New Hampshire Trust if they would separately invest the $2 million and do all the bookkeeping on it. But I have to tell you, we also have a very favorable rate. We've been grandfathered with them. So we could probably, we might be able to generate a little bit more income. I mean, I'm happy to do that, but there's still going to be there'll still be a shortfall. The New Hampshire public deposit money's fallen down. I think the 7-day rate's down to 4%.
Mhm.
So even if we were investing for pure interest, I don't think we're going to see the kind of return. If you're netting, I mean, we're paying New Hampshire Trust less than 1%, which is pretty good on our portfolio, given the tremendous amount of bookkeeping that I guarantee you guys, this is not a threat that you do not want to inherit as the select board members. Also, may I point out that we're losing our sexton this year. He's retiring. So we're also concerned that we're not going to be able to maintain our level of services, most likely as we look to hire a new sexton. But other than that, we bring good tidings and joy.
Cemeteries always look great.
Your meeting.
Okay, well, any other questions?
Any other good news?
Yeah,
Well, the good news is in the long run, we're not having to look for more property to develop for bigger cemeteries because more people are being cremated. We've got plenty of land. They might need to be buried in Kentucky, but still there's room.
Mhm.
So that's, that's good. In the short run, it's not good for us, bottom line, but in the long run, we don't have to go out and find more property and develop it.
I'm just curious if somebody's cremated, can they still buy a plot? Or
So you buy a plot and you can put 3 or 4 sets of cremains in each plot,
Interesting.
as opposed to, and you could do a full casket burial and then have cremains on top.
Hmm.
So that's more where things are headed. It used to be people would buy a lot of 4 plots or more for their family.
Mhm.
And people just aren't living together that much, close to by like that, and more people are being cremated right now. That'll change down the road, but for now, more people are being
Mhm.
cremated, so
Mhm.
takes up less space. So we don't have to worry about that.
Okay,
Right?
that's good.
When you're speaking with Dan, another issue that we have constantly is old trees.
Mhm.
And it's very expensive for us to hire tree people to come in and chop down a tree that's threatening a neighbor's house or threatening our gravestones.
And there are a
That-
couple
that
right
seems to
now.
be a chronic problem we
Yeah.
have. So I don't know if that's something that are.
Is that captured in the landscaper costs here, or is that
No.
a
So that's
separate?
just here of the,
That usually comes out of our funds, not that we, in your budget part of
so
it.
we kind of, we're very careful not doing too many.
Not
Here, we've
repairing
already
too
done
many
some this year
here.
and we have now new complaints that
There's a couple trees that aren't gonna last the winter.
we don't really have the funds to do it.
Does our DPW have the capability to do tree work, or do we also have to?
We hire out.
We hire out.
It depends. But as you go through the DPW, you'll see that amount for tree removal is fairly high,
Mhm. Yeah.
especially all the dead ash trees that are throughout town.
I feel like it sort of speaks for itself, but do you have a good sense of what work goes into the landscaping? Like it's mowing and weed whacking and do we know, so we can have a conversation with DPW?
Yeah,
Or-
Dan figured out the cost and he had a fairly high cost before, but I think we would have to relook at that and look at what's included.
Is there anything else in the landscaping that we wouldn't know about because we're not experts on cemeteries or?
The sexton always, you have to remove brush,
Mhm.
Mhm.
to open the cemetery. That's the big spring cleanup is
Mhm.
removing a lot of brush. As far as the landscaping goes, the sexton, it's mostly just the mowing.
I think it's mostly the mowing and the
And some of
amount
it has
of,
to be hand done because,
It is different than mowing a field.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. All right,
That's
well,
right.
thank you.
I'd like to offer some financial expertise. I'm happy to whip that on. The money issues and look
Yeah.
for some other answers.
Yeah, it's like, that's why we've been kind of trying to bump up what we ask for every year. It's like, we had a
Sure.
feeling this might be coming.
Well, thank you.
You're
Thanks so much,
welcome.
ladies.
Did I miss anything? exciting?
Have a good night.
No.
You too.
Thanks, you too. All right. Police,
It's nice to see you again.
nice to see you.
I didn't change too much. I think 3 of my line items I upped a little bit. One was the overtime because with raises and stuff like that, we haven't upped the overtime in a year or two. So the calculations there, I use the same thing as the above, the previous one. I upped training. We spent $8,200 so far this year on a $5,500 line. So I upped that 5,500 to 7,000. And then
And is that training? Is it all required or some of it's like
No.
discretionary? Oh,
yeah, some of it's optional.
okay.
But I'm trying to get the guys training. I'm trying to give them one of the incentives to stay, is good training and so. Oh, wait. Okay, and then the PD conference and training again. The conferences seem to be a little bit more expensive as of late. Couple of them are long weekends, so you have the hotel expense and stuff like that as well. And overall, I have a 2.7, if I did the math correctly, 2.7% increase. Over the last 4 years, I averaged about 3.5%. And it's been since 2002, a total of 14.25%. So other than that, everything else has stayed the same.
Just seeing something different than the percentage change. What did you say you had?
If I did my math correctly, I get a 2.7% increase.
So I think we're at 2.28. Am I
That's-
missing something?
Health administration, maybe? Yeah, it's 3.28.
So the numbers in the book are the numbers we're working with.
Yes.
Okay.
What's driving the range supplies and ammo?
Again, pretty much training and obviously the increase in ammo,
Okay.
price in ammo. So
Chief, I actually had a question on your write-up of service indicators. The police assists seem to have gone down considerably from 2023, which was good, I guess, but why is that?
two factors. One, I think they're just going down in general, and the other one is the way that dispatch has been putting it in their system. They got rid of a public assist call and they changed it to something a little more direct. Broken down motor vehicle, stuff like that. It used to be all grouped under one. Now they kind of just got rid of that one call.
So that most of that decline is just the bookkeeping type.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, but probably more so the bookkeeping, yes.
And similarly for public assist,
Correct, yep.
same thing.
Yep.
Okay. Did not have any other questions on the police.
Anyone else?
Just on the line items,
You have questions?
so many questions.
Okay. Okay, ask away.
No, on the investigative services.
Yep.
It seems like budget wise, we've always gone over on that one. Should we be increasing that one to match that? And this year it seems really high. I mean, it's not like a total, it's not like a high dollar amount. I'm just curious. If the last 3 years we've been over.
Yeah, I think. Let's see. Yeah, I'd have to look to see what we actually put under that line item. So we didn't buy too much of the equipment.
Was it last year that we purchased the traffic signs, like the light up traffic signs? Was that year?
2 years ago.
That came out of, was that a budget item?
That was a grant.
Grant, okay.
So I think it was a 50-50 grant, so we paid half, they did half.
And then how has that been going so far?
People love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. I get people call, hey, can you put that sign over on our road? And we have like a list, ongoing list of where to put them, but they.
Alright.
Briar Hill.
But people do like them a lot.
Wasn't one stolen early on?
It was, yes.
Have you had any other issues like that?
No, we reinforced them. So I went to a welding company in town and they came up with an idea on how to make it a little more secure. So we haven't had one taken
I
since.
did the first one back.
We did not. Now I have air tags in each one of them as
Oh.
well. So I can probably tell
You
you
don't want to say that in public, do you?
Right now.
the deterrents. So
I just figured some kid was practicing his pitching and he wanted to see if he could get over 70 miles an hour.
I thought it was on South Road when it was taken. And it wasn't too far from a swamp. So my thought is it's probably in the bottom of the swamp. But we did get it replaced, so.
That's all I got.
Chief, maybe you mentioned this and I just missed it, but the vehicle repair,
That's new. It was ours probably, I think that was in the Wheeler days. So,
Yeah.
then it went over to Ken and now it's back on us.
Okay.
So,
It was shipped.
Yeah, it's been in the highway budget, which it makes more sense to have it in this budget.
sure, okay, thank you.
Anything else, anyone? All right. Well, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything on
Oh, right.
animal control, although there's no changes.
Hasn't changed. Well, I don't even know when the last time it changed. But yeah, no. Changes on my part.
How often do you get calls for animal control?
If the officer's not tied up, we'll usually send him, but if we're busy, we'll ask the ACO to go, but I mean. I would say probably 2-3 times a week we get
Oh,
animal
wow.
calls. Yeah,
For like loose.
yeah, loose dogs,
Okay.
barking complaints,
Oh.
dog bites, stuff like that.
Okay.
So
I
it's
took-
actually,
I took advantage of that service back in the summer. I was walking my dog and this other dog just runs up to us and I didn't recognize it and asked some of the neighbors, they didn't know it. Checked online if somebody was missing a dog, didn't find anything. So I called the department and an officer came right over and picked it up and I believe he said it goes to the kennel at Poverty Plains Road.
Woodlawn, yep.
Yeah.
Doggy jail.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief.
You're ahead of schedule.
2 weeks in a row.
That way last week too.
At this rate, we won't need the 4th meeting.
That's right. Hello.
Good evening.
It's our TV star.
I know, I hate that, but.
All right.
Already. So this year we're really, trying to keep things as similar as we did to last year. My overtime, it was cut last year. Some of your, later cuts. I ran a report today. I'm like $17,000 overspent on my overtime. I refigured this year, where wages have gone up for my medium price, and hours. I've been down on part-time folks, which I really have anticipated to ramp up. So a lot of the vacancies have covered in overtime. So I've put that back to the other hours and, hopefully that take some consideration for that. Where you see the 19.2% jump. And it ended up going up $10,559. Really, I'm not adding any coverage. I'm just putting up the median price on the overtime. But like I said, I'm already $17,000 overspent, and this is really like holiday wise and everything. Some of our normal busiest time for coverage. So retirement went up a little bit. That's uncontrolled. Defib contracts. I added the two ventilators into that had never been, we were finishing up on some when we purchased those with a grant. Some of those were multiple year service contracts included, so. Diesel, we're going down a little bit. We were at $5 a gallon last year. We're gonna try $4. I'm paying just I got a bill today and it was like $3.60 a gallon, so, or $2.60 a gallon, I'm sorry.
$2.60? Seems really low for diesel.
Yeah. That was the state price for the day.
Happy to have it.
They haven't locked in at all yet. So now that we have all the new presidents always tell you they're going to keep the prices low, but we'll see what happens. The gallonage has stayed pretty close over the years. So we're up 1.73%. What do you have up there? Same thing?
1.89.
1.89.
It sounds like the same question I asked before.
It probably is just
Yeah.
within the balance, the wages and all the benefits that percentage figures out.
Moving on to the
1.89 for ambulance.
Yeah, for ambulance.
Before you go on, Chief, can you just address the conferences and training? It looks like the actuals for those have all been, at least 1 year was 4,600.
Yeah, I didn't put anybody through any classes this year. So a basic EMT class is $2,000 and about $2,500 for an advanced EMT.
Okay.
I just had no need this year to do that. We're into refresher season. That is everybody's due in March, about half and half. It's a 2-year certification.
Yeah.
So
But you do anticipate that the need to spend that amount of money on the trainings for the.
yeah, and the other thing that I was going to that I'm going to plan on doing in the coming year, our monthly training has never really got back on track since COVID. So we've actually started splitting some monthly training with Henniker, and we have somebody come in and handle that. So it's
As like a cost saving.
yeah, cost savings, and it's hit or miss depending on the month. Summer months are pretty thin on your how many people you get, and there's for us to put that on ourselves, it's numerous hours on one person to put like the material together and make it so that the National Registry will accept it for our continuing ed hours. So
Right.
And it's gotta be good training for people to keep coming back, so.
Okay.
This seemed to be something that, after talking to the rescue chief over there, that we were both interested in trying, so we have a outside, vendor coming in that has a training company. It's been pretty good so far, so.
Thank you.
And I recall that last year, there was discussion of additional people for ambulance.
Yep, the
on a second
part-time.
crew. How has the number of calls, responses increased?
We're pretty close to the same. I ran the report the other day and we've missed like 74 calls this year. I can tell you I'm half of that crew for the second ambulance. Seems like I'm running back and forth to the hospital constantly, so it has saved. I'm probably only filling that a third of the time. Last week you would have put on 2 more part-time people. I had PAF signed through. So they're both, one's a paramedic and one's an EMT on a full-time fire department in the southern part of the state. So once we get them up to speed, I think they're both interested in doing at least a day or 2 a week. So and I have another one that's actually, I'm working through some background stuff with him now to get him going. So the summertime's a miserable time to actually try to hire people. They just are doing other things, and I've really been looking for some more experienced people than starting people off. Some of those brand new EMTs are 4 to 6 month project, so that it takes a while to get any help out of them.
Yeah, so in terms of this budget, you're assuming you're gonna have that extra part-time position for the full year.
Yeah, that's my goal.
Okay, and then that would be, one of the arguments that we used for approving that last year was that it will bring in additional revenues.
It should, yeah.
So.
The more calls we do, the more revenue we'll bring.
Exactly. So when I look at the ambulance fees, it would be under Comstar revenues, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, then why is that not increasing over the requested budget from the 2024 and is actually lower than the actual for 2023?
Well, it does take a little while to get some of those bills cleared through.
So the 400's based on what we've already received this year. But timing on billing is really long. It's always hard to budget that.
But in terms of the expense, we are now assuming for the next 12 months, for 2025, we'll have that additional 4th person for those 70 hours a week.
We're hopeful that we will.
Yeah.
And we did not assume that for 2024 budget. That started, it was starting after town meeting, and then actually it was vacant for quite a while.
Right.
So, you know.
And it's still been vacant.
A lot, yeah.
Most of
Filling
the
it
time.
probably about a third of the time.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, well, we're annualizing the expense, but we're not annualizing the revenues. Is there a mismatch there? And maybe we'll wait till we talk about revenues on that one.
Good. Well, I'm sure
Mhm.
we'll have some discussion on
Okay.
revenues. Based on what we've seen, this is a good number.
Mhm.
We can be hopeful that there will be more. And I was surprised it was running a little bit behind, but I think the timing, this is through October. So we're right on target to do the 400.
Mhm. And that was when, you know, for how many months of 2024 did we have that extra 70 hours a week?
Well, there were no months, no weeks that we filled them all.
No,
If a,
There,
go for it.
your turn.
If a payment comes from an insurance company for something that we billed this year, but we don't get the payment until next year, does that get put back into the actual for the previous year?
It does not.
It would go into revenue for the next
We,
year?
we use modified accruals, so it's when we get paid.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
Any particular reason that Warner's only at 50% through 10 months? Not even at 50%?
They get billed twice a year.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So actually they'll get their second bill now.
How do we, that reflects like the actual cost of our calls out to Warner and Webster or?
Yeah, we did a contract number of years ago. And it is it's really all the ambulance expense plus capital. And then we use a 3-year call average to determine those.
And when's the second bill go out?
Right about now when the tax bills go out.
Thank you.
And at Webster, they prefer to be billed once. So.
And I think you answered this, Chief, but even if you had the additional part-time person, you would still need the amount of overtime that you're requesting.
Yeah, a lot of that is forced overtime for vacation and sick coverage, so. And you got to remember, our shifts are 24 hours and the part-time shift's a 12-hour day shift. If you look at the graph, that's our busiest time is basically 8 a.m. to about 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Okay, to go on.
I don't know where.
And instead of having an increase in coverage part-time, I've had a decrease. It's a really competitive market out there. Full-time wise, there's numerous larger departments right now that are at full staff. Concord, I know, is down 7 paramedics right now.
Mhm.
We just lost a paramedic. We're in the process of replacing that person. Like I said, on paper, there's really nobody available.
Mhm.
People that used to kick around for a couple of years to gain experience in a smaller place with a part-time job, they don't need to do that anymore. It's a crisis not only in New Hampshire, nationally, and our fire marshal was just at an international conference, and he's hearing the same thing from chiefs in Europe and other places in Canada. So
Do we have any call personnel that are paramedic or EMT qualified?
if they're running the ambulance, we kind of consider them per diem or part-time. It's a different, you kind of fall out of the call end of things when you actually work shifts. So
Mhm.
we do have a couple of people that live in town that will come back once in a while, but as time goes on, their employers are less and less inclined to let them leave their daily job to go off onto another call. So and they kind of go on severity if that's even the case with the call end of things, that they're not going to an alarm activation. They'll wait for something that's actually a fire, or if they have an accident that somebody's entrapped or something like that before they leave.
Mhm.
So been challenging. And actually, I'll be honest with you, a couple of the people that I usually would count on like 3 new people on the fire department on the call end of things a year. And I've had 3 people come in the last couple of months, and it was actually exciting. Give them a tour, tell them what we do, what we'd require. I mean, kind of what would take place. And they really want to volunteer and like help sweep the floor and wash the truck and things like that, which I don't really have any place for that. I mean, you have to go to fire school and become a fireman, and you're going to be going into situations that everybody else is running away from.
Mhm.
Myself, I've been waiting for a truck 3 times this year with my Scott pack on, waiting for water so I can put out fires. Nobody else coming. So
Scary.
it's tough times.
Yeah.
Did the paramedic who left go to a different town?
Yep, he went back to the town we got him from a couple of years ago. He took a chief's position there.
Hmm.
So.
I have a sort of general ambulance question. In your sort of like loose estimation, are things staying steady in terms of the number of calls where like we collect information for Medicaid, Medicare, commercial insurance, and the number of calls that like there's no payment?
Historically, over the last few years, we're collecting at about somewhere between 80 and 85%.
You said that, okay.
That's uncanny. I mean, most city departments collect in the 20 or 30%
Yeah.
range. If they.
So you haven't seen,
Population generally is insured or older and on Medicare, so.
yeah. So I remember you mentioned there's like sometimes repeat callers, like there was some house, I feel like, in maybe not Hopkinton, but Warner or Webster, where we had to go like 50 times.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see rises in that sort of situation, or is it all kind of staying steady?
Actually, we don't really have the, couple of years ago, we had two addresses we went to over 100 times.
Mhm.
And we transported them once and that was their last transport ever. So,
Okay, but you're not seeing like, it's been pretty steady in terms of,
yeah, and that's kind of not really that's more the exception than the rule. When you have that, you're always going to have, somebody that's going to use the services, for lift assists. And
Mhm,
it seems like you're going there consistently, but
mhm.
generally that works itself out.
Okay,
They're either, trying to stay at home as long as they can, and it ends up being too dangerous for them. And usually they end up in some sort of care.
mhm. And have you seen improvement? I feel like it was last year you mentioned that there are circumstances where you'd have to wait at like the Concord ER, for example, because of their backlog. Like, has that gotten any better? Like, are you?
Really,
Okay,
I will roll a lot of people right into the waiting room that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't be there. When you're ambulatory, you should go into a room and you should be met by a nurse and then seen by a doctor. It's kind of what people expect.
do you have to sit and wait with people in our ambulance ever? Or?
You're in the hallway and on a gurney. And yeah, I was there an hour and a half a couple of weeks ago
And you stay with
Fine. I can't, until we transfer care,
Yeah.
we're responsible for that patient, can't abandon them.
right,
So
Yeah. Huh, okay.
tough on both sides. I mean, we're looking at it from our side, but the hospital's just as busy. Their waiting room has 18 or 20 people sitting there waiting to go in. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just Concord, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna get the ability to bill some of those. It looked really promising, but the insurance companies seem to get it up. There was a bill in the House that was gonna let us start to bill some folks that we signed off, if we rendered care and were able to leave them in the home, but the insurance companies had too much lobby in the.
So are you talking about treat no transport?
Correct.
So we should have another conversation because you actually can bill for those services with a bunch of insurance companies, maybe not all of them, but
Yeah.
I think
Well, Medicare is the biggest one that would be.
it does Medicare allow it? I can't remember.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, that would be
Our protocols and everything aren't allowing us to do that yet.
because I know there are codes available for private insurance. I cannot recall if Medicaid and Medicare allow billing for treat no transport. But the insurance department is conducting a cost study and they will be issuing a report in like the next month or so. So that'll be interesting to see what happens, if anything, in the legislature with that. So,
Yeah, Kelly and I have over 40 hours into that survey.
oh,
Yeah.
wow,
It's
okay.
extensive, and they were gonna deduct 10% if we didn't do it. And there was a
Wait, who?
timeline through Medicare, and then New Hampshire had a House bill that we had to basically duplicate a lot of that same information, so.
Wow,
Mhm.
okay.
So we'll move on through the fire department.
Great.
this page. My big driver in the fire end of things is my the mutual aid dispatch was up 8.7%, almost $6,000. I think that's just a drop in the bucket to what you're going to see next year. It's based on population and evaluation. So our evaluation is probably going to kick that up, I would assume, tremendously over the next year, where our
Evaluation
evaluation
of,
Property value?
excuse me.
is that what it is?
You're talking about the property assessment total
Yes.
for the town?
Yeah, because that's how they, that's how the formula that they use is population and evaluation, so.
They didn't equalize the valuation across the towns?
Well, I haven't seen what it's gonna do to that yet, because we're actually on this year, we're working on last year's, evaluation, so.
So the 74,000 though is a fixed number at this point.
Yep, that's good for 2025. Again, I've replicated the diesel with $4 a gallon. So takes it down 14%, $1,000 out of the fire department gasoline and diesel. Fire was up $5,220. Well, that's mine.
5520,
5520. So what would it?
1.76.
1.76. Okay. Yep.
Forms are easier, but they're harder to see.
Same number.
The the account for replacement equipment, turnout gear, through the end of October, you only spent 2,600 out of a budget of 13,000. Is it?
Yeah, I just put in a
Significant cost coming?
$6,000 bill today.
Okay.
So, and then I have another order on that. I don't front load my budget. I try to do as much of that stuff as I can at the end.
Mhm.
Emergency management didn't change.
Under emergency management grant expense.
I don't see that line. I thought that was cut.
Nope, it's there, 7,500.
Oh, I never saw it at all in my budget this year.
Oh, where?
Thought that was cut. It's
Oh.
not on any of my lines.
So you don't have a problem if we zero that out?
If you don't want me to.
Then
do
we're
it
gonna
for
zero,
instance,
then we
that's
have to
very
zero
good.
the revenue too.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, no, on both sides. I agree.
yeah, I don't think that makes sense.
Hmm?
Hopefully we can get those grants.
We can get the grant whether it's zeroed out or not.
How do you pay for it?
Well, you get the revenue and you get the, I'm just saying for bookkeeping purposes.
Ken's thinking about his presentation.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm thinking,
get
you
it.
know, for the percentage increase in the operating budget, if I can go down $7,000 with really no impact on anything else, why not do it? I'm always thinking about my presentation. It's sort of off the wall question.
Sure.
It relates to the Hopkinton Fire Station. And I'm not proposing we do away with it or anything like that. But the Energy Committee was going over the energy audit for that building. And had a couple of questions. One is, do we need a freezer there? Well, maybe I should step back and say, do we have a freezer there?
We do.
Do we need it?
That we have a freezer there that has supplies in it for our auxiliary for, you know, that if they have a fire at night or whatever, that we can't get supplies when they're making stuff, but
Okay, so you're saying it's essential.
I think so. I
Okay.
mean, sometimes, when you have a call at, midnight or whatever, and then you have to feed people or get stuff. I mean,
Wait, are you talking about the place right over here?
yeah,
Yes,
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
we have an ice machine in there as well.
That is essential.
Yeah.
okay, I'll stay away from that.
Yeah, I actually try to get all the other departments to use it as much as they can, but when it's 90 degrees out, we have 2.5 gallon containers of cold water on the truck, because when you're in full gear that's warm in the winter and you're
Mhm.
standing on 89 with 100 degrees plus heat coming off the ground,
Mhm.
if you're not hydrating all the time, you're going backwards.
That makes perfect sense. And in the winter, to what extent is the building heated? Because the audit report said it's heated to 68 degrees.
No, both of my buildings, the bays are heated to 64. That's what they would have to be for the ambulance. I usually turn the heat down in this station down to 60.
Would it make sense to have a programmable thermostat there to do that automatically?
I've heard that before.
Yes. And again, these are small items, but it came out of the
I'd
energy.
certainly
committee.
give it a try and we could keep track if that made any difference. But yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to have a programmable thermostat there.
I'm just thinking it might save some dollars and energy.
So over the years, I've converted that to LED lighting. The whole building inside and out, changed all the windows. Which the windows were original from the 1950s. So I think we've done quite a bit. The doors are serviced. We've had the rubbers on the bottom changed so that they seal
Mhm.
tight.
Has a new furnace, right?
The furnace
Did we-
is from the mid-90s, but
I
it's in good
was thinking
shape.
we-
It's an oil furnace.
Thought we moved it. Maybe a different one. I must be. Oh, okay. It's in process.
What's that?
Got it.
Well, that was all I had on the audit. Thank you.
Thanks, chief.
So we got.
It's tough to look.
Thank
We're
you.
right on schedule.
All right.
Hopefully no more brush fires.
Yeah.
It is super dry out. It's just
Supposed
so
to be rain
dangerous.
coming.
Hopefully Thursday, they're saying 0.95 inches, 0.95 of an inch of rain, which will help.
Yeah.
It's 2 inches.
Good soaking.
Today, so.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and DPW, except the transfer station.
Except the transfer station. It's its own special spot.
So before we begin, I got some numbers late. Numbers to finish Briar Hill.
Mhm.
So we currently, Weaver Brothers gave me an estimate to finish, and it's a high number. A lot of the drainage on this end, we might not have to touch because it's concrete, but there are some metal culverts that we will have to replace. So it depends on how much we'll have to get into it. But a high number is 750,000 to finish.
This is finish the rest of the work or finish the work that's been
Finish the
started?
rest of the road.
Finish the rest of the road, not to complete the project that got started.
Continue on where they left off,
Right.
up to 103.
And that's based on finished coat there?
No,
Okay.
so that's just for Weaver Brothers to box it out, replace the gravel material underneath. All the big culverts have already been changed, so we can skip over some areas. To pave just the base coat from where they left off to 103 is 200,000. So we're up to 950,000. We have 660,000 and change left over from the bond.
Sorry, how much?
660,000. So we'd need 290 to do Weaver Brothers and a base coat. if we did do this, if you decide to do this next year, come up with a 290. I would forego the top coat on the section we did this year, wait till the following year, so 2026. Do a top coat of 2 inches, which would be around 400,000 to do the top coat on
The whole thing?
the whole thing.
That's the whole thing or just the piece we've done today?
That would be the whole thing.
Okay.
If Weaver Brothers were to finish what's left, we'd start right from Pennacook Road all the way to 103
Got it.
with a 2-inch top coat.
Got it.
If you do not wish to continue on, I will have to top coat it next year. I don't want to let it. I'll let it go for 1 extra year if we're gonna do it next year, but if we're not, I want to get it top coated.
Makes sense.
Great.
And I can give this to Neil and he can pass it around to you guys.
And we'll come in sort of next week with all of that.
Yeah.
As part of the.
And on top of that, before, this was after budgets was done, the state called me up and said they were going to go check the 2 remaining bridges, they're big culverts. Cause I asked them to call me when they were coming back. Cause Broad Cove was put on the red list last year. And now East Pennacook is on the red list. Divers had to go down and check it out. They put it on the red list. The guy that I went around with bumped it from a 4 to a 3. When you get to a 2, they shut the road down. So that is not good. I asked him to give me a timeline. He would not. He said you might get a year or it might be 5, 6 years. No one will give you a timeline because it's nature. So that's what we're looking at.
And what's the number for Broad Cove?
That's still at a 4.
Any idea of the cost range for these 2 projects?
So I found out today that there was 100,000 in CIP for bridges and stuff, so I initiated engineering today. For that one, and there's the small culvert behind Riverside Pizza that is in the sewer right of way. That we need to fix. So those 2 have been started with engineering. I'm going to throw out bare minimum for East Pennacook, around 600,000. Bare minimum. It's more than likely gonna be more than that. That's just a rough ballpark. Broad Cove, I don't think will be quite as expensive. It's not as deep, but the East Pennacook one is deep and these are 12-foot culverts. Just to put this on your radar.
Thanks.
So
How
we
often do they come out to
What's that?
look at, how often do they come out to look at these? Is it
the
annually?
state once a year, yeah.
Yeah.
We're able to, ones on Briar, Stickney, transform them from bridges to, they're now just big culverts. These are gonna remain bridges. There's no getting around, there's too much water flow. On top of East Pennacook, Broad Cove, and the one behind Riverside, we also have others coming up. Not as large, but they're still going to require engineering. I did forget that paper, but I do have it. East Pennacook, Broad Cove are in the $30,000 engineering range. I believe one of the other ones was in that range as well, and the others were around 18 or 20,000.
I think we mentioned last week too, we had applied for bridge aid, but that's so far off that, and it's $6 million statewide for
Yeah.
all municipalities.
I had put East Pennacook and Broad Cove on, submitted the paperwork the first year I started 8 years ago. And I've heard nothing, so.
Mhm.
Maybe tomorrow.
You know something we don't?
No.
The good news is we get these done and we are looking real good as far as large culverts and bridges.
All right. Hear that. That's something.
Yeah.
There are some grants out there too that we will work on.
Okay.
for the, if we don't have a bottom for Animal Crossings and things, so, which we wouldn't, so.
Okay.
Sorry, but
No, it's
That's what it is.
good to know.
did not know.
Yeah.
just gotta pass it along. Where do you want to start?
Defer to you.
DPW,
What's that?
what was that?
I said I defer to Dan.
Okay.
Let's start, but
How would you rank the condition of East Pennant Road? Like overall, in terms of,
The road itself?
yeah, the road itself?
Road itself is not bad.
Okay. So it'd be like a long time before we'd be looking at any sort of rebuild or rehabilitation to it.
Oh, that's the bottom of the list. We
Yeah,
have, we have
right.
roads that are so much worse.
No, right, absolutely. I just,
I mean, we just, it was overlaid second year I was here. I started in this position. I was thinking about possibly doing a chip seal in the
Yep.
near future.
Okay.
Just to kind of hold it as long as we could.
Okay.
So Public Works, uniforms has gone up some due to price increases from the company. It's 43.11. And that was the only increase that I had through 43.11 account. 43.12 highways and streets. Shimming and paving, the 5% on top.
Do you anticipate having any of those funds from this year left over that you can encumber?
No, I expended just about all of my paving line.
The last 2 years we did, but pretty much it
Yeah.
all went.
Yeah. Last 2 years I did anticipation of Briar Hill, trying to get as much of Briar done as we could, and it did work. I mean, we got way more than we expected done, so. And Weaver Brothers did a fantastic job. Keeping the numbers down and getting a lot done for our money. Tree services, this is. I don't know the answer here. We have a lot of trees that we need taken down that I need to hire out. I'm tossing up the idea of a lift or a bucket truck because tree company can't keep up. I can't keep up budget wise. I mean, I've expended the whole budget for this year already. I'm 5,000 over and I've still got a giant list of trees that need to come down.
If you went the road of a bucket truck, would your staff have the ability to do it, or you need a special license to cut
I
trees?
don't think you need a special license, but I would have someone come in and train them on how to use it.
Mhm.
I'd be more inclined to go like a lift route, one that we could drive down the road and that way we could use it at the town hall, the barn, the library,
Mhm.
you know, a little more versatile, I think.
You didn't have the pleasure of being here when the cemetery trustees presented. And one of their issues is trees.
Yeah.
Now, if you went to a bucket truck, say, would you be able to help them out with tree removal in the cemeteries?
Not gonna say no, but depend on where in the cemetery it was. Can we get there?
Mhm.
I also do have enough work of my own.
We told them that.
For the trees that you're not able to get to, like what's the sort of volume of ones that are sort of on your list, but you just don't have the time or the manpower or the
The-
equipment to do?
The last time I had the guys go around and mark trees and stuff, we had over 300 trees that we couldn't take down.
Okay,
And there's still numerous trees that we can take down that I still can't get to, just time, and I could probably devote a whole summer just to cutting trees.
and if you had a bucket truck or a lift, like how many would that enable you to get to just in a year, just real rough sort of numbers?
Again, it would depend on what else is going on. If I had to guess, I mean, I would say 40, 50 trees or more.
Yeah,
I don't like to spend money, but I know we're spending a lot of money on tree removal too. There would still be, even if we did have a lift or a bucket truck, there'd still be trees that we could not take down.
yeah, no, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what are we getting when we contract it out to someone else to do? Like, what's the expense?
It ranges from tree to tree. I mean,
Okay.
you're talking anywhere from $500 up to a couple grand.
Thousands,
or more.
yeah.
Usually you get up into like $5,000, we need a crane.
Yeah.
So they usually schedule a crane to come in like a half a day with us and a half day with someone else.
Yeah.
Highway repairs and maintenance supplies, just costs going up. I'm hoping 5,000 is gonna be enough. I know I'll be going over budget this year. I don't know if, TJ put it in, but I had removed police vehicles from my
Yeah.
list.
He did.
Yeah.
Just to give it, has him keep track of his stuff better.
Mhm.
That's the way it's set up with the fire department. That's why I asked to get rid of it. Highway sand, we have a very good credit with Foster Materials at this moment, so
All right.
we're up around 25 grand.
Wow.
So I'm just knocking it, I don't want to get rid of it, just in case something happens. I want to keep 10,000 in there, for an emergency. And this is not gonna be a permanent thing. This is temporary.
I know I walk past the sand pile regularly. Is it at its peak now for the winter?
Almost, we're still gonna fill the building.
Mhm.
So the building holds somewhere around 1,500 yards of sand. So the pile itself is done, but I want to get the building filled.
Okay, okay.
And that is over and above what we need, but I won't run out. Because if something happens with shipping and we lose salt, that's all we're gonna have is sand. And it's come close before. I think that's it for.
For salt, where you've spent basically half of the budget so far, do you expect to be spending the other half still this year?
If you could tell me that, or if I could tell you that, I'd be not working here. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't know if you had an order in for delivery.
No, I get it as needed. So the building's half full. Probably another week or two, I'll call them up and get the building full.
Mhm.
And then it's what we get for storms. So
It's not gonna snow or ice this year.
I really hope it doesn't.
Great.
Saved a lot.
After 28 years, I really hate snow.
Dan, what on the bituminous product?
Yep.
Are we gonna be spending any more of that this year?
Probably not.
Okay. Do we need
I
another
would
20K
probably, I
for-
might need some more calcium for with the winter.
Yeah.
I think I might be a little low, so we will be ordering some of that.
But on the magnitude of 20,000 though? Looks like the actuals have been a little lower. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think we'll hit the 20,000. That'll probably put us up around 12.
Oh.
I'm trying to move away from calcium, but I get a lot of pushback from people. The roller has helped a lot with dust control. Because we now have the fire truck we acquired from the fire department. And we set up to spray the roads down when it's being graded, and then we roll it after, and that lasts a long time, but some people really need to have their calcium. And I don't like to hire it out because it's very expensive. And if you put it out and then you get, like this spring when we had all that rain, that calcium's gone. So it's a guessing game.
Similarly on gravel, I'm surprised that year to date, you've only spent half of the budget because I
So-
thought in the spring you were.
So-
with that.
Weaver Brothers cleaned us out of gravel. And Henniker Crush was supposed to come in down a patch road and crush more gravel, and they have not. It's all set up, ready to run, but I guess they're shorthanded. So we're probably not gonna expend that money. If we could encumber it so I could do it for next year, that would be great, because I have zero gravel at this point, zero. I have a giant pile that came out of Briar Hill that we're going to crush up. That'll make pretty decent gravel. They saved the better stuff and we stockpiled it. We probably have around 4,000 to 5,000 yards there. And we have a pile started at West Hop Pit to be crushed. So. And if we continue on with Weaver Brothers next year, then we're gonna need gravel. That also helped keep the cost down, as I had about 9,000 yards sitting over to West Hop. And they used it all. So.
If we're able to encumber that for next year, do you still need the full 45?
Yes.
Okay.
You can never have too much gravel.
Okay.
If I could have 20,000 yards sitting in our pits, I would be ecstatic.
Okay. So that's not an opportunity to lower
No.
that line item. Yeah.
Sand, I'm good with it because we have a credit at Foster. I can go get sand.
Yeah.
The gravel, if I have to start buying it, that money that's left over will go quickly, because you're paying double, almost triple.
Yeah.
To go buy it rather than have it crushed.
Are you fully staffed right now?
I am.
Oh, good. Okay.
Birthday cakes, get them a birthday cake on their birthday and they'll stay loyal.
Is that why the full-time is up a little bit from last year? Looking back at,
That I don't know. Kelly does that
Okay.
stuff for me, so.
does that go up 6,800?
Yeah, that would just be the merit pool for the
Oh, that's
first,
right, that's
first
right.
3
Thank you.
months that
Yep.
isn't in.
Yep. Got it.
In terms of the roads, after Briar Hill, what would be next on your list?
I don't know. We have Gould Hill. We have College Hill, Hatfield Road. I have a giant list.
Yep.
That are all in about the same condition.
They're about the same.
Yeah.
No outstanding. This one's way worse than all the rest. A good chunk of really bad.
No, Briar Hill was, in my opinion, the worst one
Yeah.
we had. I think overall, I think we're not great, but we're okay, but it's gonna go downhill quick, because like Gold Hill is 2 miles long. That's gonna be another big one.
Yep.
College Hill is close to a mile, I think. And we have some shorter roads, Cedar Street. It's pretty bad. And we have some smaller developments that could be rebuilt.
Got it. Thank you.
Buildings and grounds.
I think buildings grounds, the only increase he had was in his grounds maintenance.
3,000.
Mhm.
I think that was just cost of supplies.
Sewer.
Sewer. So the first large increase is technically not an increase in the tax rate, because we just moved it from CIP, right? Was it in CIP, the testing? For the monitoring wells around the lagoons. We had the money somewhere. We just moved it from there into the budget.
Yeah. Yes, I'm not sure where, I'd have to look back and see where it had been from, but. Maybe professional services, actually.
Yeah, and chemical supplies, he went up in because he was trying to skimp by with what he had, and I told him no. There was a lot of grass growing along the edges and in the center divider of the holding pools. And he took it out, the pH went through the roof, so he had to go buy some chemicals. And so I just told him, just get the chemicals. I think it was potash and something else. I can't remember, but I said, just get the stuff and that way you can keep it clean and the pH comes up, you can manage it.
And, the CIP, costs relating to, wastewater treatment is 250,000. And that's, again, being, under this, it's being assessed against all taxpayers in town. And, probably more for the benefit of the board than you, Dan, is going to be saying that, more than 0% should be assigned to the users.
So we've been doing a rate study, and when you're through budgets, we're gonna come in and you can decide. We're really not meeting our operating costs at the moment. So we have charts and graphs and to show how much the increases should be per year or at one time, or to move it clearly.
Properties around sewer. How many properties around sewer?
222,
Something like that.
I think it's 222 users.
So sounds like there'll be some potentially significant increases just to meet the operating expenses.
Yeah,
Not
it's not good.
address.
It's not going to affect anything here,
Yeah.
but yeah. A really small user base to support the system. But electricity's dropping.
Do you have any information at this point in time of when Eversource is going to connect the solar array?
No, I don't.
Is
It's gonna go through our building inspector. He's gonna look at it and then once that's done, then Eversource will come out whenever they can and do their thing.
I'm hearing anecdotally that they could be months out. But hopefully not.
2 weeks to 2 months is what.
Well,
Yeah, I might have skipped that. Let me go back.
community well, we had
Community well as we transfer, because that's a Webster cost too.
oh, okay.
So that's it.
Can you just touch on the capital reserve fund? We're doing that later.
Next week.
Okay. But I think you mentioned, or one of your summaries talked about the 10-wheel dump truck.
What about the
Looks like. That's,
number 10?
yeah. Yep.
Why it
Schedule.
increased?
Yeah.
Because I called them up and say, what's the price now? Because it changed and changing so much. I want to make sure I had enough in there.
Okay,
So alls I did was, put more in for that.
okay.
That's the cost of the truck and the upfitting charge as well.
Okay.
And just so you know, we just got the new 1 ton a couple weeks ago. And we are holding on to the new truck. We took the dump body off the old truck and put it on last year's truck, so we're so far behind. And we now just built a flatbed for the old truck, because now we're gonna keep the old truck. Because the new truck is not gonna be done till after winter, which means I would have a truck down for the entirety of the winter. So I talked to Neil and we're gonna keep the old truck indefinitely. Just gonna put that dump, new flatbed dump body on it. We've already had the piston. I think we have like $1,500 into the dump body. We're gonna keep it to run for this winter and keep it as a backup. It's not gonna be like a daily driver. It's just mostly gonna be parked out back and when we need it. In the future, even after this winter, you can almost guarantee every storm something breaks down. Even the new stuff. The new stuff just breaks down for a few hours. The old stuff breaks down for days. So it's just have a backup, basically. Because the only backup I have right now is the sewer truck.
Are you finding it hard to acquire these vehicles? I mean, it sounds like you're waiting a long, long time after we've already ordered them.
The vehicles, no. It's the upfitters that are way behind that I'm finding we're having issues with.
Okay,
Putting the plows and wings and stuff on. The
okay,
vehicles I don't seem to be having any difficulty with, but I'm not waiting till town meeting to order them.
Yeah.
I'm ordering them for next year, I'm gonna order that 10-wheeler and the pickup probably next month.
Mhm.
Under the condition that if it doesn't pass the town meeting, it's on you, it's your truck.
Yeah.
And they've been fine with it, so.
Yeah.
They
They're
said we can-
backed up enough. They've
Yeah,
got
right.
somebody else
They
waiting.
said we can get rid of it, so.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Could you delay for a year, ordering that truck?
I could. I've done it in the past. The last truck I delayed getting rid of caught fire on the way to get traded in the year after. And in the past, we've had graders that they've kept and put new transmissions in them. You know, for more than the equipment's worth. It's a game, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
We have a very good CIP program. And we're getting good trade-in values on the stuff. And it's not leaving us high and dry, so it's your call. I would advise against it, but it's your call. Moving forward, I've heard we paid $300,000 for the new grader. 2017, I've heard that it's now $700,000. So when the new grader comes to terms, there is rebuilding programs where they go through the motor and rebuild it and bushings in it, and that might be a route we need to go. It's $700,000 for the graders.
It's crazy.
It's crazy for something that's only gonna last 15 years before we need to do something with it. The grader used to be a 10-year machine back when we used it for plowing. We've taken it off plowing. It's just for pushing large snowbanks back now. So that has prolonged the life another 5 years.
That was the 10-wheel dump truck you were asking about, Ken?
Yes.
Oh, right. I made a note that Dan advises against.
Now you can give us the good news.
The good news?
It's all the electricity at the sewer plant's going down.
Sand went down.
All right.
We have credit,
Have a credit.
we have credit.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Have a good night.
You too.
Stan.
Right on time. Look at that.
That,
Moving on to revenues.
you have in front of you an update revenue. which actually is $50,000 about more than the old one. Seeing that we have more information now.
Maybe the easiest thing, Neil, is you just point out the more significant ones that you've.
Sure. Yeah, it looks, the changes I've made since last time, starting right at the top with the land use change. That is running, the actual rate at this point is 38,885. That may be our final number, so I think 45, which is a little, it's still less than we budgeted last year, is a reasonable number. Generally between timber tax and land use change, if one runs behind, one runs ahead. I'm not quite sure why. You would think they would run together, but they seem to balance each other out. So that's the change there. So that's up. Other changes from the original. Landfill commercial is up 16,000. I put it up 16,000 based on the new fee structure. That seems to be doing extremely well. It had already gone up some, so this is actually a $76,000 increase overall. Also, recycling revenue is running higher. I think we're safe putting that up a little. And the actual money in the pay by bag fund is 18,000, so that was up. So there was some there. So that's in all of refuge charges, that's 67,000. Well, no, the change is 34,000. Sale of town-owned property up slightly, not a lot, an extra 1,500. We actually just sold the old fire truck, which usually gets about $5,000. We use municipal bid, and the bid was $10,600. So I think we can, towns have had really good luck with that. I think we can too. So hopefully we can clean out the barn. Checking account interest, I think can go up some. I don't think it's going to be as high as it has been, given that more of that, less money is in the checking account and in the investment account. And in the investment account, I don't think we're going to see a huge increase. We might see less next year, given that we don't have the bond money that we had this year. Looks like those were the changes from the original. And my philosophy is to make sure we can make those numbers, because revenue is going to be what revenue is, no matter what we put in here. But if revenue comes in lower than we estimate, that is a direct hit on the tax rate, which makes it harder to meet. We've never not been at or below what we've told taxpayers it would be when they voted in March. And tax bills went in the mail this morning, so.
Ooh, that's good.
Um, motor vehicle permit fees, which is, we always, disagree about. It looked to me as though on an annual basis, we're probably running, 50,000 above, of budget. But yet you're holding the budget number the same as last year's.
Yeah, that's the adjusted that we adjusted in September. So it was higher than was originally budgeted. We're doing about 123,000 a month. You never know if people don't buy new cars. That could be down. And we can update it in September like we did this year if it seems to be running way ahead. That is still substantially above 22 and 23. We didn't see too much change in those 2 years. And I know there was some pent up demand. I'm not sure we're going to keep seeing that pent up demand now that cars are available and people have bought them.
But prices were up also since 22, 23. Um, building permit fees. The department number, originally I had 44 and now it's showing 50.
I might have changed I might have changed them both. I don't read. Both the department and the town administrator numbers are mine, so
This 50 was more in line with what I was thinking.
yeah, I think 50 is reasonable.
Year to date, looks like we're at 46.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've
Yeah.
cleared 50 easily.
We're at 46.6. I know that's another one of those things. We've had some up years. We've had quite a bit of building, relatively speaking, to previous years.
We did have the discussion with Chief Yale about the ambulance fees from Comstar. There, if we're budgeting on the expense side for the extra position for 12 months, should we be budgeting for extra revenues in here also? certainly if we, look at the 2022 and 2023, they were, well, one was basically 400,000, the other was, 25,000 higher without that position. So I would think we could increase the revenue by at least 25,000 there
We're on target to hit 390 this year.
without with many months without the extra person.
Right, with no guarantee we'll have it fully next year either.
And if we don't have it, we don't have the expenses either.
Right.
So,
We still have to, but if they're budgeted, we still have to raise taxes for it, whether they're expended or not. It's different on the revenue side.
the operating budget with the revenues are subtracted before you determine the tax rate.
Nope. If you appropriate it, you can't change it. It's whatever's appropriated at town meeting. You can't change your budget numbers after they're voted.
No, you're not.
But if we don't spend it, it would increase the fund balance at the
For
end
the
of next.
following year, it would. You're right. Likewise, extra revenue would too. So it's a wash.
We know what the fund balance, you have a projection of the fund balance for this year.
Look, we know it's at least. What are we at? 612,000. Looks like 600, almost 613. That's without sort of knowing yet if there'll be extra revenue or expense.
Just know Kim is gonna ask before too long.
I do.
By the way.
Thank you. Carry on, Jeff. Should the percentage, should the amounts for the ambulance share for Webster and Warner go up slightly because the budgeted amounts for ambulance are going up?
Yeah, but so is the revenue, which helps to offset that. So those are based on past experience more than the numbers we come up with. They've been pretty close.
Am I looking at this sheet you handed out correctly, Neil? That total all-in revenues are expected to increase by 142,000, 3.36%.
Yes, 3.36%.
Thank you. Just want to make sure I wasn't misreading.
The TIF exit 6, the reimbursement for Anna's position. I know you had said you were going to be looking at that again because the numbers didn't quite fit. It makes sense in the expense.
Right. The merit increase wasn't added into the 2023 2024 number. So it has been, that's why the percentage was off. The 2025 number was correct. The 2024 budget amount was not.
Now, the 27,819 you have here, is that include
Yes,
50% of fringes?
yes.
Okay.
Which in this case are just Medicare and Social Security.
And the revenues you show for sewer fees are simply to cover the operating costs.
Right. Because that's a wash, although hopefully we get that.
So have you plugged all these numbers into the overall? See what that shows for a total increase? No.
I haven't updated all the.
Hmm?
I have not updated all those sheets.
Okay. Now, the good news that Dan gave us would wipe out any increases in revenues anyway.
Yeah, we'll be working on that diligently before your next meeting.
Did you have any thoughts on the cemetery?
As far, I think eventually that it should move over. I don't think it's as simple. We kind of looked at the cost, and when they asked last year, we were down to highway crew anyway, so there was no way we could possibly take on anything. There are towns that do it both ways. It seems like, yeah, you've just got to look at your balance and what it would take to cover that. Ideally, you'd hire two older high school or two college kids and pay them each $5,000 a summer. And for $10,000, you'd get the cemeteries in great shape and they'd have a decent summer job.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Cost savings right there.
That's right. But we would have to buy equipment to do it because it's a lot of hand stuff. It's very different than the wide mowers that do the fields. We don't do a lot of hand mowing.
Where was I think it was the 77,000 or 7,500 of grant revenues that
Emergency management. Yeah. End of the fire budget.
yeah,
Let's mix
What-
them with some other ones.
in terms of the revenues, what
3359,004. 004.
Yep. State other grants.
Yes.
so if we want to reduce it on the expense side, we should reduce it here also.
You would have to do it at both.
Yes. Absolutely. I guess we talk about the revenues more when we get to the what the bottom line impact is.
Mhm. Okay. All right, we're good to wrap up our budget work for tonight? Good, okay.
More than ready.
Feels- Okay. So that will conclude the public portion of our meeting. We have one
Yes.
non-public, and I'll make a motion that we go into non-public, and when we come out of non-public, we will not conduct any other business.
Second,
All right, it's a roll call vote. Jeff?
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ken?
yes.
Steve?
Yes.
All right, thank you to
Thanks, Karen.
0 people.